Yo guys, what is up? It is Braden here from the WoW Classic channel. And today guys, we're going to be comparing old school RuneScape and WoW Classic and how there can be pros and cons to adding a 1.13 patch or post-Naxx content to Classic. Currently, the WoW Classic community seems very divided. A lot of them are saying no changes, and a lot of them are saying Burning Crusade. A lot of them want completely new Classic content. And I'm just going to explain basically what RuneScape did and how it turned out for them in what aspects and what maybe we can expect from the WoW Classic team and how it can help or hinder WoW Classic. Old school RuneScape initially came out with no changes, simply copying a 2007 version of the game. This is really similar to WoW Classic that will be copying the vanilla release of the game. The initial old school RuneScape team only consisted of 3 people, and basically they just fixed bugs and stuff to keep the game running, some anti-bot detection when the game first came out. Later on, they added polling, poll booths, which basically allowed players to go and vote on the changes they wanted to see added to the game. These changes had to pass a 75% yes vote on the community ratings for it to be added into the game. This allowed the players in the community of old school RuneScape to make the decisions for the game and to choose the updates for the game. This was a relatively good thing. Most people enjoyed it. For the most part, it turned out pretty well. The only downside being is that it's hard to maintain that mystery aspect when you're voting for a new weapon to be added to the game. Before it even comes out, you already know what the weapon is, you already know what the boss is going to look like, what the mechanics are going to be, you know pretty much all of the content before it's released. It kind of gets rid of that mystery for the players, but it's a kind of a small downside to pay to make sure the content is actually good and suitable. If WoW Classic was to add some sort of polling system, it may get rid of that criticism that a lot of big streamers like Asmongold have been mentioning, saying that he doesn't trust the Blizzard developers to produce new content, as they just clearly have shown in recent like BFA patches and stuff that they just can't do that. It's just not something that players want to play. And I agree with that, and I think that the polling could potentially help WoW Classic. If we were going to go down the path of post-Naxx content and not go to Burning Crusade. I personally think that if we did go to Burning Crusade, it would be short-lived. People would enjoy Burning Crusade, obviously. They'd probably play through the whole thing, do all the raids, etc. But then it leads to the question, well, what do we do after Burning Crusade? And I really don't think people want to see Wrath of the Lich King. Even though Wrath of the Lich King was one of my favorite expansions, honestly, when I was really into the game in my teens, but I personally think that it was kind of the beginning of the end for World of Warcraft with the Dungeon Finder and everything. So I really think that we shouldn't stay away from Burning Crusade, and I really just don't think for the longevity of Classic, looking down the road 5-10 years from now, similar to the lifespan of the original World of Warcraft and RuneScapes, we really should try to focus on a better solution than just replaying old content and try to make our own. And that's just my opinion. One way I see it working out really good is you release Classic WoW in the current beta state, and then you do all of the phases like it's already planned out to do. That sounds completely fine to me. It'll give stuff things for people to look forward to, content to look forward to. But once we do all the phases, I think we kind of need to sit down and figure out what we're going to do, because I think we all want to play this game for a long time. I have seen some people say literally no changes at all, keep the game 100% the way it is at launch, and do the phases, but then just leave it and just kind of let the game just go. I think that would probably discourage a lot of people. Like, I don't think people really want to play a dead game. I mean, sure, there's going to be people playing, obviously, but if there's no updates, nothing to look forward to, you know, once you get all your max gear and everything, things are going to get kind of stale. So what I think they should do probably is to add like Hydro, maybe like Caverns of Time, maybe like there's like tons of areas in the WoW Classic world, the original World of Warcraft map that just are unexplored. They just cut them before the initial release of Classic or Vanilla, I guess. And those areas, I mean, they can easily take that like Hydro, convert it into something really cool, go off the base storyline of World of Warcraft. I know some people aren't going to like that, but I think it would be just best to do that. Old School RuneScape did that. Obviously, they still keep the bigger pieces of the puzzle. You know, they maintain it. They're not making a completely different game, but they do add their own, like, you know, bosses and, like, you know, big storylines, etc. And I think we could do that with Classic. There's just tons of places we could do that. A final point I wanted to mention was power creep. I've been seeing a lot of people mention power creep and how we can't add this new content because it's just going to devalue the old content, etc. And I'm not going to lie, I agree with that. Old School RuneScape does have this. The content that came out day one of Old School is pretty much just overshadowed by the new content. They had to add like new weapon levels sort of for the gear. Before, like, you could only equip swords with like 75 attack, and now it's up to like 80, 85 attack. And that's going to happen to WoW Classic too. And honestly, it's going to happen to pretty much every video game. To give players new content and to give players new content and for them to be excited about it, it has to be something new, interesting, unique. The loot has to be good. It has to be better loot than they already have. And with knowing that, I mean, it's just inevitable that, yeah, the old content is going to get devalued. And if you don't want the old content to get valued, then you have to just keep the old content and not add any new content. They could maybe add some like lower level stuff. I know RuneScape's done that, just to kind of, you know, give stuff like new things to explore, but not necessarily like, you know, max new raids, you know, like that drops gear better than Naxx. They could definitely fill in some gaps. Maybe just add some new quests at level 60, you know. But I think for the long term, they're gonna have to add new raids. They're gonna have to add new best in slot gear. And it's just kind of inevitable, and it does suck, but I mean, Old School RuneScape, let's see, it came out in 2013, it's 2019 now, it's still going on now. The player base just recently hit an all-time high. I mean, if we're looking long term, I think, yeah, power creep's going to happen, but it's something that I think we can live with, and it really will only become a problem when the game does eventually start to die. Which is eventually going to happen. I mean, if you seriously think you're going to be able to sit here and play WoW Classic until you're 50, that's not going to happen. You know, the game's just going to go down the shitter eventually. I mean, all games do. You're just going to get bored of it, or somebody's going to start screwing it up. They're going to add microtransactions. I can already see them adding, what's it called? The WoW tokens, I think they're called. They did that in RuneScape. Old School RuneScape initially came out. They didn't have... they call them bonds, but basically the same thing as WoW tokens. They initially didn't have them in the game, and yeah, they eventually added them. They still claim they're never going to add microtransactions. They're never going to add a shop like they did in the original RuneScape. But, I mean, you know, maybe it's only a matter of time. Maybe those player numbers start to drop. Maybe they do start adding microtransactions. And at the end of the day, these companies, they just want to make money, and we just want to play a good game. But I think power creep is going to happen, and I think it's something we're going to have to live with. And I think we can still get a very lengthy, great game, you know, before stuff does start to go downhill. And trust me, it'll go downhill. You know, maybe 10 years from now, but it will. So I just want to say one last thing. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you guys check out my Instagram. That's kind of where I started getting some followers and decided to make this YouTube channel. But yeah, thanks guys for watching. Let me know what you thought. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.